Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 8, Text 42. Tat tat tagacha bhadram te yamuna yastatam suchi punyam hadhuvanam yatra sanidhyam nityadha Hare. My dear boy, I therefore wish you all good fortune for you. You should go to the bank of the Yamuna where there is a virtuous forest named Madhuvana, and there be purified. Just by going there, one draws nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always lives there. Purport. Both Narada Muni and Suniti, the mother of Dhruva Maharaj, advised Dhruva Maharaj to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Narada Muni is especially giving him directions how this worship of the Supreme Person can very quickly fructify. He recommends that Dhruva Maharaj go to the bank of the Yamuna, where there is a forest of the name Madhuvana, and begin his meditation and worship there. Places of pilgrimage yield a special advantage for a devotee in quickly advancing his spiritual life. Lord Krishna lives everywhere, but still it is very easy to approach him in holy places of pilgrimage, because these places are inhabited by great sages. Lord Sri Krishna says that he lives wherever his devotees are chanting the glories of his transcendental activities. There are many places of pilgrimage in India, and especially prominent are the Bhadari Narayana, Dwarka, Rameshwar, and Jagannath Puri. These sacred places are called the four Dhams. Dham refers to a place where one can immediately contact the Supreme Lord. To go to Bhadari Narayana, one has to pass through Hardwar on the path to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, there are other holy places of pilgrimage, such as Prayag in Allahabad and Mathura, and the topmost of them of all is Vrindavan. Unless one is very advanced in spiritual life, it is recommended that he live in such a holy place and execute devotional service there. But an advanced devotee like Narada Muni, who is engaged in preaching work, can serve the Supreme Lord anywhere. Sometimes he even goes to hellish planets. Hellish conditions do not affect Narada Muni because he is engaged in greatly responsible activities in devotional service. According to the statement of Narada Muni, Madhuvana, which is still existing in the Vrindavan area, in the district of Mathura, is a most sacred place. Many saintly persons still live there and engage in devotional service of the Lord. There are 12 forests in the area of Vrindavan, and Madhuvana is one of them. Pilgrims from all parts of India assemble together and visit all 12 of these forests. There are 5 forests on the eastern bank of the Yamuna: Bhadravana, Bilvavana, Lauhavana, Bandiravana, and Mahavana. On the western side of the bank there are 7: Madhuvana, Talavana, Kumudavana, Bahulavana, Kamyavana, Kadiravana, and Vrindavana. In those 12 forests, there are different ghats, or bathing places. They are listed as follows: Avimukta, Adirudha, Guya Tirtha, Prayag Tirtha, Kanakala, Tinduka Tirtha, Surya Tirtha, Vatsvami, Dhruvagat, and Dhruvagat is where there are many nice trees, of fruits and flowers, and is famous because Dhruva Maharaj meditated and underwent severe penances and austerities there in an elevated spot. Then there's Rishi Tirtha, Moksha Tirtha, Buddha Tirtha, Gokarna, Krishna Ganga, Vaikuntha, Asikund, Chatu Samudraka Kupa, Akrura Tirtha, which is where Krishna and Balaram were going to Mathura in the chariot driven by Akrura, and all of them took bath in this ghat. Then there's Yagnika Viprasthana, Kubja Kupa, Rangasthala, Manchasthala, Malayudhastana, and Dasavmedha. Text 43. Snatbhanu aspanam tasmin kalinja salile shive kritvochitani nivashan atmana kalpitasana. Narada Muni instructed, my dear boy, in the waters of the Yamuna river, which is known as Kalindi, you should take 3 baths daily, because the water is very auspicious, sacred, and clear. After bathing, you should perform the necessary regulative principles for Ashtanga Yoga, and then sit down on your asana, sitting place, in a calm and quiet position. Purport. It appears from this statement that Dhruva Maharaj had already been instructed how to practice the eightfold yoga system, which is known as Ashtanga Yoga. This system is explained in our Bhagavad Gita as it is, in the chapter entitled Dhyan Yoga. It is understood that in Ashtanga Yoga one practices settling the mind and then concentrating it on the form of Lord Vishnu, as will be described in the following verses. It is clearly stated here that Ashtanga Yoga is not a bodily gymnastic exercise, but a practice to concentrate the mind on the form of Vishnu. Before sitting on his asana, which is also described in Bhagavad Gita, one has to cleanse himself very nicely in clear or sacred water thrice daily. The water of the Yamuna is naturally very clear and pure, and thus if anyone bathes there 3 times, undoubtedly he will be very greatly purified externally. Narada Muni therefore instructed Dhruva Maharaj to go to the bank of the Yamuna and thus become externally purified. This is part of the gradual process of practicing mystic yoga. Text 44. Pranayamena trivritta pranendriya manomalam sanharvyudhasya vidyayen manasa guru naguram. After sitting on your seat, practice the 3 kinds of breathing exercises and thus gradually control the life air, the mind, and the senses. Completely free yourself from all material contamination, and with great patience, begin to meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. In this verse, the entire yoga system is described in summary, and special stress is given to the breathing exercises for stopping the disturbing mind. The mind by nature is always oscillating, for it is very fickle, but the breathing exercise is meant to control it. This process of controlling the mind might have been very possible in those days, millions of years ago, when Dhruva Maharaj took to it. But at the present moment, the mind has to be fixed directly on the lotus feet of the Lord by the chanting process. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one immediately concentrates on the sound vibration and thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord, and very quickly one is elevated to the position of samadhi or trance. If one goes on chanting the holy names of the Lord, which are not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, naturally his mind becomes absorbed in thought of the Lord. It's here recommended to Dhruva Maharaj that he meditate on the Supreme Guru or Supreme Spiritual Master. The Supreme Spiritual Master is Krishna, who is therefore known as Chaitya Guru. This refers to the Super Soul who is sitting in everyone's heart. He helps from within, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, and he sends the Spiritual Master who helps from without. The Spiritual Master is the external manifestation of the Chaitya Guru, or the Spiritual Master sitting in everyone's heart. The process by which we give up our thoughts of material things is called pratyahara, which entails being freed from all material thoughts and engagements. The word abhijayat, which is used in this verse, indicates that unless one's mind is fixed, one cannot meditate. The conclusion, therefore, is that meditation means thinking of the Lord within. Whether one comes to that stage by the Ashtanga Yoga system or by the method recommended in the Shastras, especially for this present age, to constantly chant the holy name of the Lord, the goal is to meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dandavat Pranamananda Krishna Prabhu. Text 45.
Dandavat, Umadevi, Krishna, Keshav.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Prashadabhimukham shasvat prasanna vadhanekshanam sunasam subhruvam charu kapolam surasundaram. The form of the Lord is described herein. The Lord's face is perpetually very beautiful and pleasing in attitude. To the devotees who see him, he appears never to be displeased, and he is always prepared to award benedictions to them. His eyes, his nicely decorated eyebrows, his raised nose, and his broad forehead are all very beautiful. He is more beautiful than all the demigods. Purport. This verse clearly explains how one has to meditate on the form of the Lord. Impersonal meditation is a bogus invention of modern days. In none of the Vedic literatures is impersonal meditation recommended. In Bhagavad Gita, when meditation is recommended, the word matpara, which means pertaining to me, is used. Any Vishnu form pertains to Lord Krishna because Lord Krishna is the original Vishnu form. Sometimes someone tries to meditate upon the impersonal Brahman, which is described in Bhagavad Gita as avyakta, meaning unmanifested or impersonal. But it is remarked by the Lord himself that those who are attached to this impersonal feature of the Lord suffer a very troublesome task, because no one can concentrate on the impersonal feature. One has to concentrate on the form of the Lord, which is described here in connection with Dhruva Maharaja's meditation. As will be apparent from later descriptions, Dhruva Maharaj perfected this kind of meditation, and his yoga was successful. Text 46. Tarunam Ramaniyangam Arunostik Pranatasrayanam Rimnam Sharhanyam Karunharnavam. Narada Muni continued, the Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish like the rising sun. He is always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. Purport. Everyone has to surrender to someone superior. That is always the nature of our living condition. At the present moment, we are trying to surrender to someone, either to society or to our nation, family, state, or government. The surrendering process already exists, but it is never perfect because the person or institution unto whom we surrender is imperfect, and our surrender, having so many ulterior motives, is also imperfect. As such, in the material world, no one is worthy to accept anyone's surrender, nor does anyone fully surrender to anyone else unless obliged to do so. But here the surrendering process is voluntary, and the Lord is worthy to accept the surrender. The surrender by the living entity occurs automatically as soon as he sees the beautiful youthful nature of the Lord. The description given by Narada Muni is not imaginary. The form of the Lord is understood by the Parampara system. Mayavadi philosophers say that we have to imagine the form of the Lord, but here Narada Muni does not say that. Rather, he gives the description of the Lord from authoritative sources. He is himself an authority, and he is able to go to Vaikuntha Loka and see the Lord personally. Therefore, his description of the bodily features of the Lord is not an imagination. Sometimes we give instructions to our students about the bodily features of the Lord, and they paint him. Their paintings are not imaginary. The description is given through disciplic succession, just like that given by Narada Muni, who sees the Lord and describes his bodily features. Therefore, such descriptions should be accepted, and if they are painted, that is not imaginative painting. Text 47. Srivatsankam ganasvaimam Srivatshankam ganashyamam Purusham vana malinam Shankha chakra gada padmar Abhivyakta chaturbhujam. The Lord is further described as having the mark of Srivatsa, or the sitting place of the goddess of fortune, and his bodily hue is deep bluish. The Lord is a person. He wears a garland of flowers, and he is eternally manifest with 4 hands, which hold, beginning from the lower left hand, a conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. Purport. Here in this verse, the word Purusham is very significant. The Lord is never female. He is always male, Purusha. Therefore, the impersonalist who imagines the Lord's form as that of a woman is mistaken. The Lord appears in female form if necessary, but his perpetual form is Purusha because he is originally male. The feminine feature of the Lord is displayed by goddesses of fortune, Lakshmi, Radharani, Sita, etc. All these goddesses of fortune are servitors of the Lord. They are not the supreme, as falsely imagined by the impersonalist. Lord Krishna in his Narayan feature is always 4-handed. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Arjuna wanted to see his universal form, he showed this feature of 4-handed Narayan. Some devotees are of the opinion that Krishna is an incarnation of Narayan, but the Bhagavat school says that Narayan is a manifestation of Krishna. Text 48. Kiritinam kundalinam keyura valayanvitam kaustubhabaranagrivam pitakosheya vasasam. The entire body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, is decorated. He wears a valuable jeweled helmet, necklaces, and bracelets. His neck is adorned with a Kaustubha jewel, and he is dressed in yellow silk garments. 49. Kanchi kalapa paryastam lasat kanchana nupuram darshani yatamam shantam manho nayana vardhanam. The Lord is decorated with small golden bells around his waist, and his lotus feet are decorated with golden ankle bells. All his bodily features are very attractive and pleasing to the eyes. He is always peaceful, calm, and quiet, and very pleasing to the eyes and the mind. 50. Padvyam naka manishrenya vilasadvyam samharchatam hrit padma karnika dishnyam akramyatmanya vastitam. Real yogis meditate upon the transcendental form of the Lord as he stands on the whorl of the lotus of their hearts, the jewel-like nails of his lotus feet glittering. Okay, and thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 51 on Friday. Were there any comments or questions from the assembled devotees? Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
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 Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Guru Dev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Rupanuga
Jai.
Guru Varga Ki Jai.
Jai.
Glorious to the assembled devotees, our glorious to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhakti Veda Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Nishringa
Jai.
Puri Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham
Jai.
Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham
Jai.
Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath
Jai.
Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai.
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 Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai.
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 Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Hari Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Shyam
Jai.
Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai.
Jai.
Tulsi
Jai.
Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
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 Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai.
Jai.
Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai.
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 Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai. Sri
Jai.
Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai.
Jai.
Sri
Jai.
Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Nittai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai. Jai Sripad Ananda Krishna Prabhu Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu Ji Ki Jai.
Jai. Hari Bo.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhu.